On behalf of Talks at Google and the Black Googler Network, it is my honor to present Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Just a quick introduction in case you're in the wrong room. He is a 6-time NBA champion and a 6-time MVP award winner. In addition, Kareem is a best-selling author and the global culture ambassador for the United States of America. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
I think everyone here knows how great you are at basketball. But they might not know is that you're a huge baseball fan too.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Did you ever try to play or go pro?
I did try to play. I played up through Little League. And also played in the 7th and 8th grade. You know, after you're 12 years old, you don't play in Little League. And I played for my grammar school. I went to school in New York City. And I really had talent as a pitcher, but no one worked with me on the issue of control. So, you know, some of my pitches went up into the stands and stuff. And basketball was just so much easier for me. So I decided I'd stick with what was working real good for me at that point. I had already won a scholarship to high school and got better than that very quickly. So I gave up my aspirations. I didn't have, what's his name, I always forget his name at the wrong time. But he was 6'11".
Randy Johnson?
Yeah.
Big unit.
The big unit.
Yes.
There you go. I didn't have him as a role model. You know, my role model was Don Drysdale. Not a bad one, but the big unit really, you know, at 6'11" and throwing the ball like that. They put the gun on me when I was in 8th grade, and I was throwing the ball over 90 miles an hour. But nobody knew where it was going to go. Some of the parents would come and watch me pitch, and they were like, "Get my child out of there, he's going to kill him." So I stuck to basketball, and everybody was happy with that. But I was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. I've been a Dodger fan my whole life. Jackie Robinson and those guys were my heroes when I was a kid. When they left New York, when they left Brooklyn, I cried. My mom had to console me. And then I was 10 years old at that point. And then 8 years later, I followed them to Los Angeles. So that's my baseball stuff.
Speaking of Jackie Robinson, he was also very politically active.
Yes,
Did that influence you?
It influenced me a lot, especially the stuff he did after he retired. You know, he started a bank in Harlem. You know, I went down there with my $34 and put it in the bank, you know. I just really thought that what he was doing about awareness really made a lot of sense, and I really appreciated what he was doing.
Who were your other role models?
Geez, my other role models, Dr. King, Malcolm X, are two that stand out, especially at that time when I was in grade school and high school, and a lot of musicians. My dad was a jazz musician who could not, his dream was to be in Count Basie's band. He never made that, so, you know, he was a police officer. But music was a big deal for me. And Miles Davis, really, I admired his style, I admired his music, and what he was about politically, about being able to be recognized for his creativity and what he was doing to create America's only art form that is totally American. That really had a resonance with me, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed his music. I knew a number of the guys in the band. Two of them are still alive, Herbie Hancock and Ron Carter. Been friends. Ron used to play basketball with me and my boys when I was in grade school and high school. I didn't know who he was. He was just a guy, you know, one of the older guys that wanted to play with us. And then I realized, you're playing in Miles' band? Oh my God. So I got to meet the rest of the guys, Wayne Shorter and Tony Williams, and met Miles. It was weird though, meeting Miles. The first time I met Miles was at a jazz festival in Orange County. I was a freshman at UCLA, and Tony and Ron introduced me to him, and he said, "Oh, look at this guy, he has to pay $500 to get a tie made." And then he walked away, you know. And you know, this is not really how you dream of meeting one of your heroes, you know, how you want that to go. So two years later, after he had won the NCAA tournament, Miles watched a lot of sports. He liked basketball, he liked boxing, but then he knew who I was. I ran into him in the street in Harlem, and he was like, Kareem, oh my God. And he took me to his house, we watched some fight films, and it was amazing, you know, to go from somebody that he just made a weird joke about to somebody that he invited into his home, and we had a good interaction. It was amazing.
So what motivated you to write this book?
I'm worried about what's happening in America. We're supposed to be trying to make this a more perfect union, and it seems like we've lost our connection with what the founding fathers had in mind, and basically that's what motivates me to write what I wrote. I think that we're starting to understand some of the implications of what the founding fathers, who they were as people, and what their intellectual emphasis was. In order to make it a more perfect union, they're going to have to get away from some of the ideas that supported white supremacy. When our country started, slavery was part and parcel of it. Women couldn't vote, Native Americans couldn't vote. There were no other people than Europeans, and that's changed dramatically. And we have a big disparity in just, if you look at the legal system, people of color are given much greater sentences, bigger fines, more punishment for the same crimes that white people commit. But white people get less time, less fines, and stuff like that. And it's a bias that we have all accepted, and we can't accept that. So we have to do something to change that and make the laws work for everybody. And if we can do that, we're going to get a lot. We're going to accomplish a lot, and actually make this a more perfect union.
So despite having a black president, institutional racism is still a problem today.
Yes.
What can we do about it?
Well, I think one of the issues about it having a black president, everybody thought it was a sign that said the end of the road has been reached. We have a black president now. You know, Americans are able to judge someone on the basis of his intelligence and what he saw as a vision of what America should be about, and they elected him based on that. And everybody really got behind that. I remember seeing it in 2008 when Obama finally made it over the top and got elected, and they showed some film of people on 125th Street in Manhattan, my hometown, my neighborhood, and they were going nuts on 125th Street. Everybody was jumping up in the air and running around because it was easy to believe that we had crossed the line and we were all equal. It's not a reality. It was a milepost, a significant milepost, but we still have a long way to go. Just like what Dr. King said about the things that needed to be accomplished after he passed. And I think we need to focus on some of those things, economic equality, and making the criminal justice system really work for everybody.
In the book, you also talk about something called wallpaper racism, in addition to institutional racism. What is that?
Well, wallpaper racism is just the acceptance of stereotypes. We believe that all of the police are not biased, and they treat everybody equally, and they wouldn't commit any crimes. Police are just like anybody else. And some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them try to get away with stuff. So we have to really eliminate those types of things that we accept just because it's part of the tradition of our country.
Well, at Google, we have a lot of training to try to get rid of bias. And diversity is a very hot topic in tech right now. And you have a Skyhook Foundation, right, that promotes STEM education.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, what we do, I work with the Los Angeles Unified School District, and we take kids from the inner city.
I think we're good now.
I'm sure it could be Ming the Merciless. We take kids from the inner city and we send them to camp for 4 nights, 5 days and 4 nights. And they do hands-on STEM experiments in the field at a camp that the Los Angeles Unified School District has up in the Angeles National Forest. It's just north of LA. You can see it from LA. A lot of the kids can see it and have never been there. They've never really left the circumstances of their own neighborhoods. So we get them up there and we get them to deal with things, usually animals and observations. They do nighttime observations of the sky and get an idea of how technology affects their lives and how technology affects where the good job opportunities are going to be in the 21st century. And they get this idea and they go back. We do it for kids up through junior high school because we found that after junior high school, 97% of females and 92% of males give up on anything having to do with technology. And if you get to them early enough, we can affect that and give them an idea of where they can do a great job in finding a good career in the technological field. So this has had a really profound effect because we found that a lot of the kids have family members who work in hospitals and other technologically sophisticated places that, they are nurses' aides or lab technicians and stuff like that. And they start to get a better idea of what they can do with their lives. So many kids, they want to be LeBron James or Beyonce or Jay-Z or these kind of people, and they have no chance of doing that. But if they pay attention in chemistry class and math class, they can really take that and make a career out of it and do very well for themselves. So we've done about 80,000 students so far. We have a 3 or 4 year waiting list, and it has put me on kind of a path where I have to keep begging for money, for more funding, because so many more of the schools want to come and become involved. It's had a very, very positive effect on the kids that have been able to take part.
Do you want to plug the website? I'm sure some Googlers would love to donate.
KareemAbdul-Jabbar.com. You can go and just go to KareemAbdul-Jabbar.com and you'll find out how to make a donation to the Skyhook Foundation. And before you even call, I want to thank you for your support if you feel like supporting us.
What do you think of the diversity programs in the corporations?
I'm glad that corporations are seeing the need for diversity programs. The whole idea of bringing women and minorities into a parity with the people who traditionally do well, I think is incredible. It's necessary. This is part of what has to change before we make the progress that we need to make.
Well, this is related. Why do you think we need to see more minorities on TV and in movies?
Well, I think that the fact that you see more minorities on TV and the movies means that you're not shocked to see somebody that doesn't look like you doing something that you didn't think that they could do. For the longest time, there were no black quarterbacks because it was too intellectually challenging for black people to take the snap and throw the football. It's absurd stuff, But this was accepted. It was too intellectually challenging for a black person to pitch. Don Newcomb and people like that changed their minds on that, but it took a while. So we're still trying to overcome some of these stereotypes that we just take for granted and accept. And it's amazing how much of a hold they have on our way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me because there's been too many objective examples of how it's not true and it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But people still hold on to it.
I think we made Warren Moon prove himself for 7 years in Canada before letting him back in America.
Right.
That's Pretty awful.
And Warren had the arm and he had the intellect to be a pretty good NFL quarterback. You know.
Speaking of other people on TV, Serena Williams is playing the U.S. Open semifinals today. How awesome is she?
I think she's quite awesome, and she's done a little bit better than people like Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe, and that's hard for people to get their head around, but she has. And she pays the price for it. Still, she doesn't get the endorsements and other opportunities that have nothing to do with tennis that other tennis players get just because they are pretty white women.
Do you want to expand on that?
No, I think that's enough said.
All right.
I don't have anything against pretty white women, but I think Serena needs to get her chance too, you know?
You're also a huge advocate for equal pay. Why is that important?
It's absolutely important that we bring the pay of women up to par. They do their share of the work, but they don't get their share of the pay. There's something that stinks about that, and we need to do something about that. And I hope if Hillary gets elected that she helps speed that along, because again, it's maintaining a stereotype that women do not have the intellect or the tenacity to be in leadership positions. That has been disproven. Benazir Bhutto and Golda Meir have proven that to be a falsehood, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. So we just have to keep pushing on that one.
In the book, you also mentioned that we also need to address the issues facing lower-income women and women of color. What are their specific challenges?
Well, I think lower-income women and women of color have to be single-parent. They have to lead single-parent homes, and they need more help. Because if their kids do not get the educational opportunities that they need to do well, they're going to become a permanent underclass. So we need to do something about that. We need to remedy that situation and make it possible for them to be effective parents, because they're carrying a very heavy load.
Well, why don't a lot of Americans care about the poor?
Most Americans don't care about the poor because most Americans don't want to be poor. And they see so many examples of people who come here very poor and they make it, okay? Andrew Carnegie, very poor person. I think his family were sheep herders in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
They came here and they did all right. And for certain reasons, if you have white skin and good business ideas, you get the opportunity. If you don't have white skin and still have the good business ideas, you'll either get ripped off for your ideas and not paid, or you'll be ignored. So that has to change.
Actually, I really appreciate that the book mentions 10% of Americans in poverty are Asian American. That's not a fact that a lot of people know or care about.
They don't care about it, and again, we're dealing with a stereotype, you know. Most Asian Americans come here and they open up a Chinese laundry and they make all this money and buy some real estate and sell it and make billions, and they're living down in Florida
Wait, that pays more than Google?
They have tremendous wealth and they're living in Florida and they don't have to work anymore. That's all BS, you know. They work hard for what they get, just like any other ethnic group.
The next question is also related to income. Should we pay our college athletes?
We absolutely should pay our college athletes. They're being ripped off. They make all this money. The guy who runs the NC2A makes like $6 or $7 million a year. The athletes who put that money on the table make nothing. They get room and board and tuition, and that's it. There was a gentleman that I knew when I was going to UCLA. He explained that to me. He said, "You've made, just in the 3 years that UCLA won the NC2A tournament," no offense to the Huskies, please, but in those 3 years, UCLA made millions off of you, and what did you get? I didn't get anything from them. You know, I got a couple $100 each month. And he said, that's not right. This is like, you're like an unpaid minor league for the NBA. So we need to change the situation. So we would get season tickets. All the players got season tickets. You get 2 tickets. And the face value of those tickets was, $400 or $500. He scalped my tickets for me and got me about $3,000. And that enabled me to at least, take my girlfriend out to dinner and to have a car. I'm not saying that we have to make college athletes wealthy, but we should pay the people that earn the lion's share of the money, which are the basketball teams and the football teams. They're the ones that there's so much support for, and they supply the bulk of the money. I mean, nobody pays money to go see the water polo team. And they work just as hard as the guys on the football team and the basketball team, but it's not a revenue generating type of event. So I think they need to find a way to judiciously and fairly spread that around for all of the athletes that work so hard, and make the people that support their universities proud.
So right now, we don't pay our athletes in college, and we don't let the ones who are professional athletes speak their minds. What do you think of Colin Kaepernick right now?
Well, I think Colin has the right idea. He should use his position as a platform, but I think he has to be a little bit wiser about what he's advocating. He was going to try to portray all of the police departments as pigs. That's not good. He's defeating his own purpose. But if he can get to the point where he gets a dialogue going between communities and their police forces, and they want to heal the divide and really make it so that the police have an idea of who the people are that they're there to protect and serve, and the people in the community have an idea of what the police are doing to keep them safe. When they get that mutual appreciation of each other, that's when a bridge has been built. And sports heroes can really facilitate that. So I'm going to talk to the guys on the Seahawks today. Later on this afternoon, I'm going to talk to them. They want to talk to me about these issues. And I intend to bring this up and help them get an idea of how they can do it wisely, where they don't alienate everybody. Because the people that have worked so hard in our country, especially police officers, they don't appreciate being smeared like that, with a broad brush. There are some bad cops out there, but that is not really what it should be about. It should be about making it better and finding a way to train the police better so that they don't react to the fears that they have, because they have legitimate fears. Police work is a dangerous job, they know that, but sometimes it gets out of hand and their reactions are totally inappropriate and people end up dying. And that's the real shame of all this. So we're going to find a way to get them to understand that, and hopefully build some bridges with the various police agencies because all cops love sports because it's a great diversion for them. They got to go out and risk their lives oftentimes on a daily basis. So we got to appreciate that, and if we build this communication and make that possible, I think it'll be a great improvement.
You have been politically active ever since your playing days at UCLA. Didn't you boycott the 1968
68 Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, I would say in Mexico City.
It was in Mexico City. There wasn't really a boycott, but I didn't go anyway. I didn't want to go. The person who was who ran the U.S. Olympic Committee was named Avery Brundage, and he was the individual who did not let the Jewish athletes compete in Berlin in 1936 because it was going to make Hitler angry. So I wasn't going to do anything for him. That was out. So I didn't go. And that's why I didn't go. I didn't make a big stink about it. I just wasn't going. But I think that Tommy Smith and John Carlos really did it in a way that got the point across without offending the wrong people.
But did you still get any backlash?
I got a lot of backlash because people thought that I secretly was a communist or some type of subversive, and my own tendency to keep quiet and be shy really didn't serve me very well. I needed to speak up and let people know what my thinking was all about, because I think a lot of them would have agreed with me on a lot of the issues. But I had a lot to learn.
How about the time you demonstrated after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Well, after Dr. King was assassinated, I took part in a demonstration on UCLA's campus. And we just stood on the campus. We didn't say anything, but some of us had signs. And a number of people, about 4 or 5 people, stopped and said, "Hey, you're getting an opportunity to play in the NBA. What are you doing out here demonstrating?" And they didn't understand the fact that the two were not, they had no relationship to each other. I was talking about the unnecessary and horrific assassination of a great leader. And they're talking about the fact that a black athlete, had the nerve to protest that. It was just a total miscommunication. So, but I dealt with it. It didn't last that long, but it was something that it really opened my eyes to how stereotypes and people's thoughts about the way America is could be so distorted, and they had no appreciation for the reality that we were dealing with.
Wasn't your very first article about Dr. King too?
Geez, I don't remember. It's so long ago.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a section in the book that talks about how you were a student or immature reporter at a King's rally.
Oh, okay. That I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in high school, and we had a program in Harlem where it was a mentoring program and also a summer jobs program. And there were different workshops, and what it was all about was to show the kids in Harlem that they had to have an idea of what their careers should be and how they could make Harlem a better place. So I was in a journalism workshop because I had aspirations at that time to write. So Dr. King came and addressed all the participants in the program because the start of the program, Dr. John Henry Clark, was friends with Dr. King. Dr. Clark was a sociologist and historian, a very, very well-known, very highly respected person. And Dr. King was happy to address us. So they gave me, as someone in our journalism workshop, they gave me press credentials, and I went and covered it with the people from CBS and the New York Times, and I'm with all these people I'd seen on TV doing the news, and I'm standing there with them with my recorder and my notepad. And I even got to ask Dr. King a question, and just having him touch my life like that, he answered my question. I was like, wow, and covered it. And it's been part of what has made me motivated my whole life.
You've also written books on the Harlem Renaissance and African inventors and decorated black soldiers from World War II. Why do you like history so much?
I like history so much, especially Black American history, because Black American history is part of American history, but it's always been seen as, it's been marginalized. And Black Americans have contributed so much to what makes America the great place that it is. I start with even the exploration of the Western Hemisphere, which blacks participated in, the exploration of North America, the Revolutionary War. I tried to give a broad picture so that black kids could have something that they could relate to, a book that they could open up and find out how they fit in, where do we fit in, because American history has always been about white Americans, what they have done, and everybody else has been marginalized, along with women. And it has to stop. We got to, if we're going to paint that picture, we got to put everybody in it that belongs in it. So that's what that's all about.
The book also dedicates an entire chapter to aging and senior citizens. What are some of the challenges that they face?
Well, senior citizens, they also are marginalized because they're seen as being useless and over the hill, and they're not. So many of the elderly Americans still have great ideas, and their wisdom and experience are very, very useful for those of us who don't want to make mistakes. So we need to appreciate our older citizens and not marginalize them and say that they're useless.
See, you have accomplished so much in your life. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I want to be remembered as someone who cared about my country, and I want to. If my kids can remember me in a positive light, I'm happy with that. Nothing else is important to me.
Well, I think that's a great answer. And with that, let's open the floor to questions from the audience. We have a microphone stand over here, so please line up and ask a question if you have one. Yeah.
Hi, first of all, welcome to Google.
Oh, thank you.
I think we covered that already, but just
Thank
cool
you
to
very
see you here. We're honored. Just as someone from a different generation, I've been really encouraged by the level of dialogue that's going on in our country right now around issues of race and racial equality, but I've also been really discouraged by the tone of it. Having been through different civil movements, what do you think of the general tone? Are you encouraged?
I'm encouraged insofar as people of color are starting to understand that they need to do something so that they can be included. I'm discouraged when people want to support the idea of white privilege. That has been part of what the problems have all been about. People of color quite often have been the last hired and the first fired. And that has been wrong the whole time. Qualified people do not get the opportunity because they don't look right. I remember they were complaining about an ad in North Carolina during the race that Michael Jordan didn't want to participate, and one of the people running for office had an ad that showed black hands handling money, and that really was like a dog whistle that we don't want black people having any responsibility. We just want them to be here for menial, hard labor and to accept that and keep their mouth shut. So I think that's what it's all about. We have to make this a real meritocracy where people of color and women are able to benefit for what they contribute to our society.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
And also, I was doing some homework for you. Doug Baldwin of the Seattle Seahawks just tweeted out about an hour ago, to express a desire to bring people together, our team will honor the country and flag in a pregame demonstration of unity. So just a heads up when you go talk to them later.
And that's what I want. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm very excited to be here. Let me just open by saying, unlike most people, perhaps my first introduction to you was actually through the game of death. And Bruce Lee, one of my favorite human beings.
Right. And he went to UW.
He did.
Yes.
And I learned more about you from there. I'm going to be presumptuous and talk for just 30 seconds about myself. I think the background's relevant. No, it is, I promise. My dad worked in the civil rights movement briefly in Harlem. I grew up in a black neighborhood just outside of DC. I went to a public school that was 90% black and 7% Latino. I was picked on for being the only white kid in a 42-person class. When I was 16, I was stopped and frisked and mistreated by police officers for being in a poor neighborhood. When my now wife, then girlfriend, gave me $1 for the bus, it was called a drug deal. So I got put up against a lamppost and frisked, and my eyes started, slowly opening to how much that was happening in that neighborhood to everybody, who of course were all people of color, unlike me. And then in college, I saw Tim Wise speak. This is the end of his background story. And Tim Wise is a white man who talks a lot about race. But he was very influential for me because I'd had sort of these moments of slowly waking up to these issues. But he was the first person who came from my background of having experienced privilege and very little, forms of prejudice in his life, but was so passionate about the issue and spoke from a background that was easier for me to relate to. But I was very prepared in some sense based on a lot of experiences I had in my life that were unusual for, I think, white straight males like myself, right? And so I'm curious, how much have you talked to people about specifically this issue of making these issues more accessible to people who are often not directly suffering from the artifacts of oppression and racism in this country?
Well, thank you for your question. I think that that issue is so important because in our country, it seems like it's okay if there are a group of people, and it doesn't matter what color they are, if someone is in there that is the wrong color, and you went through that, you were the wrong color in a bunch of predominantly African Americans, and you got picked on, and that was seen as okay. And it's not okay. Just as it's never okay that black Americans and other Americans of color are picked on when they're the only one amongst a lot of white Americans. We got to treat everybody, as Dr. King said, based on who they are and the content of their character and just who they are, what they are standing up for. And we have to stand up for people who stand up for the right things. And we can't have the blinders on that blind us to a person's character. And sometimes color can be those blinders. So we got to find a way to remove those and reward the people who deserve to be rewarded and discipline the people who deserve to be disciplined. And you can't be biased about that. We can't do that. But we've permitted that for so long that it's becoming acceptable behavior given the right circumstances. Whoa, there's a white guy with all these black people. He's probably a drug dealer, or he's married to a black woman, or he's, something that traditional white society would not accept. And that goes both ways.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Just as a very brief follow-up to that, I guess the main concern that I have, that I see regularly, is when we have these conversations about race, diversity, prejudice, all of these things, there tends to be two camps. The people who already understand that there's a problem and are actively trying to be participants. And then there are people like, I once was, who were just very blind to the issues in the first place. And I came from this background where I feel that I was a little more prepared to kind of open my eyes to see these issues. But I also, I went to college with a bunch of, all the white people I knew in college came from much richer families than I did, grew up in totally different neighborhoods, and they just didn't see this stuff at all, didn't recognize it. And I want to know, how do we actually start bringing these issues to the people who are not already converts, part of the choir,
I think the only way you can do that is to get these people who don't see it because it hasn't touched their lives. We got to figure out a way to get them to see that issue, because that's the issue. Ignorance, excuse me, ignorance often is bliss, right? Everything's great. I got everything I need. These people don't know what they're doing. They don't work hard enough. They're lazy. And that's not what it's all about. But until we can point that out in ways that they get it, we're going to have a hell of a educational problem to overcome. But this is something we got to work on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your question.
Hi. So first of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here and talk to us and impart your knowledge on us. So I have a question that has to deal a little bit with wallpaper racism. I tutor middle school and high school students from with Solid Ground. So these are all underprivileged children, mostly children of color. And what you see is that when they go to school, they have lowered expectations from their teachers, it seems. And apart from your teachers and the people that are helping you there, you usually get these expectations from your parents, but they don't always have a great family structure for that. Oftentimes, the child will have parents that neither of them graduated high school, and they don't really care about their child's education. And so, I guess, what are your suggestions for helping put expectations on them so that they can succeed? Because what I see is that when they don't have the expectations, they don't typically succeed. And when they do have the expectations, they do succeed, because they are almost always smart enough to do what they need to do. They just, no one's telling them they are, I guess. So.
Well, I think that what the problem that you're identifying has to do, the lowered expectations are often accompanied by teachers who see lower expectations in the poor kids that they teach. So they use discipline, the discipline issue, to try and deal with that, to get them to do something. and instead of giving them the opportunity to overcome the gap. So if their parents don't have an education and don't see that as important, you can still transfer the values that you have that enabled you to get to the position where you are. You can transfer that to the kids. They don't have to be like their parents, but so many times people just think it's a genetic thing, and that's it. And some of the brightest people in our country come from absolutely horrible circumstances, and they overcome it just because they're bright and they have they recognize their own ambition, and they go for it. So I think that you can't ever have an attitude where you won't be pleasantly surprised. You got to allow for that to happen as a teacher, and if we can get that idea across to the people in power that make all of these things happen or not happen, I think we can do a better job. But raising people up from poverty and ignorance is really a very tough thing. And it also will require that people are willing to spend the money to get the good teachers who don't want to be involved in it because they're not appreciated and they're underpaid, and why bother? Mm-hmm. I think we've gotten to this point. The American education system for so long was the best in the world. Our high school students had the best grades of all the industrialized countries in the world, and now we're down 6th or 7th place, 8th, 9th, 10th place, just because people aren't going to spend the money for the good teachers and give them the opportunity to do the things that they have done so well for decades. Sometimes in the 70s or 80s, they just threw their hands up and said, forget it. And I think we paid a price for that. So I hope that changes.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Hi. So in the introduction to your book, you mentioned how it's really unfortunate that oftentimes people repeat history and the mistakes of history. But my question, what I'm wondering is why something that's worked in history hasn't been repeated, and that's your signature move, the Skyhook. Why today do we not see that as much in the NBA? I mean, obviously it's very hard. I've tried to incorporate it in my game and I can't. But I'm sure if I had more time, I could perfect it. Is it just that it's hard, or maybe today the game's changed where people are going for and ones and 3-point plays?
It's actually, thank you for your question. It's not that hard. I think what's happening is the guys who are teaching kids to play the game, the kids, they don't want to work on, with their back to the basket, close to the hoop, where actually you get a high percentage shot. They don't want to do that. They want to shoot 3-pointers. Everybody wants to shoot 3-pointers. It's, they see Stephen Curry, they say, oh, that's what I want to do. And when I was learning the game, guys that taught young kids showed them post moves as part of the game. I had to learn post moves, and I had to try to learn how to play perimeter stuff just so I understood the game. And that's not happening now. And everybody wants to shoot 3-pointers now. I'm the leading scorer in the NBA all time. I made 1 3-pointer my whole career. And I can tell you that was a shock and surprise to everybody that was there that night. But the ball bounced out into the corner. I went out and got the rebound, and there was nobody coming to guard me or anything. So I stepped back and shot one, and it went in, fortunately. I'm 1 for 13 in my career in 3-pointers. But I took a lot of high percentage shots at the paint using my shot, and it worked. But the kids, they don't want to work on learning it. So I think it has, styles go in cycles. So maybe at some point people will realize that getting high percentage shots actually balances out the guys that can make the 3-pointers. And that's what you need. You need versatility on the basketball court, because if you are stuck at just making 3-pointers, you're going to end up like the Warriors ended up this year, where once Cleveland figured it out, they shut them out on the inside, got all the rebounds, limited them to one shot. They won 3 games in a row to win the world championship. And that was just because Bogut didn't play for the Warriors. They had nobody that could compete near the basket. And Cleveland size actually really won that series for them, despite the wonderful stuff that you see from Curry and Thompson. It didn't work.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
You're welcome. Good luck. Good luck in the gym.
We just have a few minutes left for the rest of the questions.
First of all, I want to say I really admire a lot of your op-eds and writings about issues of racism and a lot of these institutional problems that we see today. And I have kind of 2 questions. One is more on your experience, and second is kind of advice. So I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I'm what I call the post 9/11 generation. I was born Muslim, and I was raised in the U.S., and I was 7 years old when 9/11 happened. So this kind of ties into my question. First, how has your experience been living, I guess, as a double minority, being as a Muslim and as an African American? And 2, for people like myself, for I guess younger folks who have kind of lived and grew up with this experience of having this kind of tax on expectations of their behavior or things they have, or stereotypes or anything they have to put up with, how do you cope with it? How do you, I guess, what advice do you have to make it easier to deal with?
Okay, I've been through the same part of the same experience as you have, because prior to 9/11, being Muslim, you kind of went under the radar. People, they weren't that interested in it, and as long as you didn't bother them, they weren't going to bother you. Americans are pretty good at that, you know. I don't know what he's about. He has purple hair and he wears shorts and sneakers, but they'll let you go. But then if you start creating a problem, you're going to get a lot of negative attention. And that's what happened. I think for the Muslim community, they're going to have to engage. They're going to have to do everything they can to show Americans that they are just as happy to be here as all the other Americans. Most Muslims are really happy to be here, because if they were over in the Middle East or wherever their families came from, they would have to deal with some type of oppression, either political oppression or sometimes religious oppression, because that is commonplace over there. And their wives and daughters and sisters get totally abused living in that circumstance, when the Quran says that women are supposed to be able to choose their husbands, petition for divorce, own and inherit property, and that they are partners with their husbands. That's ignored in the Islamic world. That doesn't happen. Women have no protection there, and the Quran says that those rights are supposed to be protected. Yet those Muslim governments do nothing to protect the women because they enjoy chauvinism. So most Muslim families are happy to be here, especially the women, because their rights will be protected. If somebody tries to rape them, or if somebody tries to force them to marry somebody, they can protest, and if they can prove that to a police officer, they'll get protected. And that doesn't happen over there. So it's a failure on one hand of these Muslim governments, and sometimes it's a failure of their families and communities to engage. But when Muslims engage and let people know what the Quran is about and how they are supposed to interact with other faiths, and how they're supposed to be good citizens no matter where they live, if they live in a Muslim majority country or as minorities, they're supposed to uphold the laws of the country. As long as the laws of where they live do not oppress us, we're supposed to cooperate and respect those laws and respect the traditions of that country. That's what the Prophet said, that's what the Quran says. So we just have to let them know what's right and what's wrong in these circumstances, and you can change that. And it all involves engagement. So just have people not be intimidated by it, but explain who they are, what they're about, and offer their help to overcome these things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, we're running a little over on time. Let's just take this as the last question.
Okay, well,
And then one more. You were standing in line the whole time. Is that okay?
It's fine.
I'll be brief then. I wanted to follow up with something you said about the election of the first black president, which, to be sure, is a great barrier to cross, but also doesn't mean that racism is over. And also, I think if you look at the Obama presidency, I don't know that he has taken on the problems that face minorities in America, especially strongly, be it racist drug policy and incarceration rates or deportation. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what it has changed to have young black people see a black president and what it hasn't changed.
Well, I think just seeing a black president for the last 8 years, and he's tried to do so many things, I think that has been great for the whole country, black kids and white kids, insofar as, hey, he has his strengths and weaknesses. We can judge him on those things and not on the color of his skin. And that's a big improvement. But I think President Obama had to deal with so much opposition from the Republicans just because he was a black person, and he whipped them twice. And they can't stand that. That's really what it's all about. They can't stand the way that he beat them. He was smarter than they were and understood the issues and did a better job in addressing the American people about the things that concern them. And the Republicans haven't been able to do that. They keep coming up with the same, this BS about, trickle down. We take the taxes off of the wealthiest people and jobs will trickle down. That hasn't happened ever. And they keep repeating this. And it's horse crap, So they've used that as an excuse to oppose everything that he's tried to do, and it's really hamstrung his presidency. And in addition to that, he has to be president for all Americans. He can't just be the president for black Americans and just someone in the job for white Americans. He has to do the best job he can for all Americans and can't be seen as being biased. And I think that really is what you're talking about, where he could have been more proactive in for issues that are important to minority communities. But if he did that, the majority of the country would feel that he was misusing his position. And he was really handcuffed in that sense. But I'm so happy that he got the job and did what he has tried to do. And I hope that people over time will appreciate him more just for the patience that he showed in all this opposition. We can't even get another Supreme Court justice in because they don't want to give him the opportunity because he might do something that they don't like. And he did win that election in 2012 that enabled him to do that, whether they like it or not. But they're not going to acknowledge that. It's really the double standard that applies to most people of color that has traditionally been part of the American way of life, and we got to get away from it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thanks for coming. I'll try to make my setup short. This touches on themes, you mentioned that we need to solve the problem of income inequality and wealth inequality. And some of the previous questioners also brought up the ideas of visibility, that people who are not experiencing oppression, even if they're well-intentioned, may not be aware of its existence and may think that some of the people who are speaking about it are, blowing it out of proportion, that kind of stuff. So because of that, I think some issues that come up that are very important, things like affirmative action and reparations, people think, you see people classify that as like reverse racism, and that we have this sort of myth of colorblindness that, that everybody, I guess if they don't experience the unlevel playing field of lack of opportunities a lot of people are experiencing, they think it sort of propagates these myths of, if people just worked harder, they would get the things that my parents had to work hard to get. So I guess, the specific question I was wondering is if you have a position specifically on reparations, whether you think that's something that our government should be
I don't think that reparations are appropriate because there's nobody alive now that owned slaves. Those people, they got away with that. So there's nothing we can do about that. But I think that because especially people of color are so economically far behind, that an educational effort focused on the communities of people of color to get them to the point where they can compete for good jobs and economic opportunities, I think that focus, people could accept that. Because these people have inherited an inferior position economically for something that they didn't do. And it can be remedied through education. Their kids will have the education and the opportunity to do much better and have some catch up. But there's nothing we can do about what happened in 1845. There's nothing we can do about that. And I don't feel that I can hold any white person responsible for that. It just doesn't work. Right. I'm glad people like Georgetown University are acknowledging their culpability and doing something about it. And again, they're doing it with, they're going to have some scholarships for kids from black neighborhoods that need it, to give them the educational opportunity that will enable them to overcome something that they inherited. So I think that's the only way to go about it without being unfair. And I hope, overall, throughout communities in our country, we start to see that and make the adjustments. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick announcement. You can get a copy of the book in the back, and Kareem will be signing them. And with that, let's thank our guest.